Welcome to Fans of the Forge. We're doing Season 5, Episode 33. I'm Teresa. We have...
Chris.
And...
Sean.
So for Episode 33, it is the fourth round of the Invitational tournament, the last round before the finals. It's the Modern Metalworkers. And guys, what is the picture on the anvils? Sean?
Any ideas?
Oh, I don't even remember what it looked like.
It looked like a gun or like a weird...
Angle grinder?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe.
I don't even remember what it looked like, but I'm just going to say angle grinder.
All right. I guess that's the closest to...
We have no idea.
Yeah, I couldn't figure it out. I didn't know what it was
Okay.
supposed to be.
Let's go with that.
So our contestants are Roger. Who's Roger? It's Grizz. Grizz, he has 24 years experience full-time.
And why was he called Grizz?
Because he had an adventure with a bear.
Or an encounter with a bear.
I'm going to call it adventure.
Some sort of run-in with a bear.
Yeah.
How could that not be an adventure?
Adventure sounds like a fun time.
Yeah.
Not all adventures are good. Anyway, next was Rick, who has 5 years experience part-time. He was my underdog. And then Henry was next with 8 years of experience part-time, and he was Sean's and Chris's underdog.
Mm-hmm.
And then Dave, we are dubbing the ringer. We all picked him with 36 years experience full-time. So for round one, they must free a canoe or canister from a metal sculpture in order to make a Damascus dagger using 1095 powder and a piece of mild steel harvested from the sculpture. So the sculpture looked a lot like, their boxes, almost like crates.
Yeah.
They're welded together. And there were 2 canoes and 2 canisters, and what you found was what you got. So I think it was Henry in particular wanted a canoe, and he got a canister, and, sorry, bud, that's what you're working with.
Yep.
So they had to make a dagger that must have a needle point tip and an edge between 12 and 15 inches, and a total length of the weapon not to exceed 22. So for Dave, he used a torch to free the canoe, and that took him no time.
Like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
It's done.
He's like, I use this all the time. Just everything can be done with a torch. And so it seems to be true. He twisted the mild steel in places. He put it in for his core to hopefully have an additional pattern as he's sharpening his blade and grinding it down. That will provide flexibility without worrying about not having any unhardenable edge. He used the torch again to cut away the canister edges. So this is his default tool, and it's working well for him.
And I think that's the first time I've ever seen someone on a show do that.
Yeah. They were
Seemed to be the
impressed.
first time they saw it too. Maybe that's going to be a thing.
Well,
now.
and it's funny, like he used the whiteout in his canister.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But he said, screw it, I'm just torching this shit off.
That whiteout is not the end-all be-all for getting that canister off, as we've seen.
Well,
sometimes
you
it
gotta
just
let
doesn't work.
Well, it's got to dry.
Right.
If it doesn't dry, you're screwed.
And, we still haven't seen anybody else do the paper towel, which, of course, by the time they recorded all these, they wouldn't have known about that because that episode probably wouldn't have aired yet. But it'll be interesting to see maybe next season if anybody uses that paper towel technique.
I wonder if they have paper towels for them to use.
I'm sure they can get paper towels from somewhere.
Hey.
Come
I
on.
think they took all the paper towels away now because of
Where were they?
where are the
Do you
magnets?
think they are...
They're on the shelf.
I don't know if they got paper towels
what if you cut your finger and you need to wrap it up in something?
You go to medical and they wrap that shit up. You don't go to the medical bag like, hey, dude, I'm going to grab some
Well, I'm
some
sure there's
Band-Aids
guys
out
that
here.
are just like wrapping up something quick and to like keep going. Like if it's not a bad cut, but it's a little nick or something.
I don't know, bro.
I think they can get a paper towel if they need it. Anyway,
I don't know that they would let them go somewhere outside of the little area that they're supposed to be in and grab like a napkin or a paper towel. That's what I'm saying.
Well, okay. Well, think about it this way. Spicy Mike got a banana from the craft services table during his. And it means,
Did they show him walk over and get it? Did he have it with him all the
No.
time?
In fact, I believe one of the cameramen, he said, offered it to him. But the point of the matter being is generally there's paper towels or napkins
Because they use them for other things too.
on the craft services table.
What I'll
so you
say
have
to
something-
that is he wasn't using his banana to forge with.
Oh, I wonder if you could use the banana peel instead of paper towels to do a Damascus
I feel like that would cause more problems than it solves.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Make it smell like a
So I was still
flambe.
talking about Dave.
Yeah,
there was one more note
Dave's
for him.
not here, man.
What?
Cheech and Chong reference.
Oh, okay. Anyway, after quenching, there was a slight warp, and he was not worried that it would eliminate him. So then Henry already stated he wanted the canoe, but he got the canister. So he was dropping mild steel chunks into the canister without any apparent pattern of anything. He was just like boop 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 doop doop.
Yeah.
Didn't appear to have any way to keep them in the center. He's just kind of plopping them in.
Kind of important because you don't want the mild steel to be on the outside or on the edge.
Mm-hmm.
So as he's forging that, there's a pinhole that he does manage to get plugged, and then
It took him a couple of tries though.
Yeah. But he did it. He has trouble peeling the can away, and finally, drama.
Yeah.
He gets it out.
Mm-hmm.
It works. And he quenches with lukewarm blade at 2 minutes left. So that wasn't ideal. Grizz ended up with a stand-up canister, and he loves making Damascus. Starts to notice a void in the billet, so he cuts a 5-inch piece off of it. Could be an issue when drawing out the billet because the mild steel center will push out towards the tip. And he cuts out a notch in order to keep the high carbon steel at the tip.
Which is kind of a cool technique that he did.
Yeah, that was neat the way he cut it out.
And he quenched it a couple times. The first one ended with a warp, and the second one, still warp, had a slight bow to it.
It's funny because you could see Dave Baker cringing when they see him going back in for a second heat treat. It's like, this is his second one. It's not like they've seen guys do it 6 or more times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rick had trouble finding a canister and is the last one to get a canister out. He ends up with a canoe, and he has trouble peeling off the can, so he just leaves it on, decides to grind it off later, and he had a good quench. So for as much as he had a hard time getting started, it was pretty smooth.
He caught up, yeah.
on.
And when he was bringing his billet over to the press, that thing was super hot the way it needed to be, and so he worked it out.
Yep.
So for judging for Grizz, Ben has a concern that the tip could be mild steel, even though we all saw Grizz cut out a center notch for that exact reason.
I don't know why he brought that up. The technique Grizz used is specifically, and he stated it, he explained it. He's like, I'm cutting this out in this way. I'm bringing the tip together so that it's going to be high carbon on the outside, on the tip. There's no worry about mild steel on the tip. And then Ben's like, well, there's a concern about it. You saw him do it. What are you talking about, bro?
Rick had some D-lams. Could still be some can left on the blade. Henry, the D-lams can be seen. Dave says those are the cubes that were put in the canister, and those can't be hardened. So those chunks that he was chucking in there did end up near the edge. And then for Dave, overall, good job. Henry got the boot. It was the first canister he'd ever made, and it did not serve him well.
Yeah.
It was apparent. And,
not bad. Not bad effort, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
no, good effort.
I think we've seen guys have much harder time making canisters
yeah, for sure.
for their first time than this guy did. So hats off. Round 2, they have to obviously put a handle on, but they must also incorporate a guard. So Dave notices a slight warp while grinding. Now, I think Dave said the judges had said that there was a warp or something like that, but they didn't. They didn't show it, at least. So anyway, he's starts grinding. He doesn't have enough steel to grind, though, because it's thin. Right. So he etches the blade. Notices it's all high carbon on because it's all black from the etch. So gives him the confidence to bend it back to normal. So he sticks it in the vise, and he's just working this thing out.
With no heat.
No heat. Zero heat. It's just cold. It's just bending that thing around. And I was like, no, man, don't.
Yeah.
I was worried because I was like, dude, I'm rooting for you. I don't want to see that thing break.
Yeah.
And he got some of the warp out, amazingly, so it didn't break. He goes for a through tang, and he's just using some shims instead of epoxy to hold everything together. So he's like, I'm just going for this mechanical bond. Doesn't want to use epoxy. Kind of risky. We'll see if that's a problem later.
Dave Baker was right away. He's like, I really wish you'd use the epoxy.
I really wish you would use epoxy. Yeah. So, looking at Grizz now, he works to get rid of the warp by grinding, and he puts on his guard and hand material, but didn't shape the wood before gluing everything together. So it was going to make it difficult for him to shape the handle material on the grinder without grinding into the guard. But they didn't really show him doing anything about it. So, I mean, whatever. It didn't make a big difference. Rick, he cut away some tang material at the bandsaw. And that ended up dulling the blade of the bandsaw. And I think, was it Baker that made mention of that or Ben? So then he goes to cut his wood block in half. And guess what? Well, that dull blade is kind of wiggling on him, and he's not getting an even cut. So he says, okay, I'm just going to take the outside, put those on the inside. Seems like a good idea. Mm-hmm. Okay. But I don't know if that came into play here. He had trouble lining up the scales after he applied epoxy. So he had his holes drilled, and then he puts epoxy on, and he can't get things to line up. And then Ben says, well, you can't drill holes this way and then flip the pieces and expect them to line up. They're not going to line up. But I don't think he drilled the holes before he cut it, so I don't think that would have been a problem. Right?
He might have. We just didn't see it.
I'm pretty sure he did. And
how are you going to drill holes in a solid block? I mean, I guess you could. I didn't.
Well, no, I do hear what you're saying. Why would you want to? You'd want to drill it through everything at once.
That's your billet. Are you going to drill 2 holes this way and then put it on a bandsaw like this? And then expect the scales to fit like that? Because that would work, but I don't know why anyone would do that. I've never seen anyone do it. They cut it in half first, then line everything up. They put the scales on both sides of the tang, then drill through.
And they drill through everything. Yeah, you make a good point. They probably wouldn't have said it if they didn't do it that way, I guess, but it's hard to tell. They didn't really show him doing that.
And so my note is so much for test fitting. Because he couldn't get things lined up like, it's not working. Like, well, you test fit, you make sure it works before you put glue on. And he's like, it's 5 minute epoxy.
It's under stress and pressure. People don't always think of those things when they've got a 3-hour time frame. What?
No excuse.
Perfectly valid excuse.
Terrible excuse. So then he grabs Dave's hammer and he's like, can I use this? And he just like beats it together and that's about it.
Didn't break or nothing.
No.
Just stayed together.
So move on to the strength test with the oil drum stab. So this was a little weird because Ben holds the handle of the knife, the dagger, with tongs, and then he beats the end with a hammer. Yeah. Normally they hold it and they hammer it through. Yeah, he's holding it with tongs.
Sometimes they use tongs.
Or
like some other kind of thing to hold. They don't always hold it by the handle when they're smashing it.
The whole point of the second thing was you had to add a guard, so that's generally like they don't add something extra if there's no guard. Maybe
I don't see any danger of him like really hurting himself other than missing with the hammer. But he was worried. He had kind of a weird position where the drum is pretty low, and he's standing and he's got this weird angle going on.
With the tongs and everything else, it was weird.
It seemed odd. So anyway, Grizz lost about 1/8 inch of the tip. The edge held up well, had a comfortable handle, and the guard is perfect. Rick was worried about his tip. The point held up well. There was some edge damage. Difficult to know where the blade is when holding onto the handle. It's kind of a weird shape. And Dave's tip took a roll, but overall well done. So moving on to the sharpness test. The leather apron stab on a dummy. Grizz, the tip issue did affect some of the stabs, but did penetrate and lacerate. It will cut. Rick, the grooves in the handle don't match. So I think Doug said, if you hold it this way, it's weird. If you turn it, it's even worse. But overall, it will cut. Dave's was light and easy to control. The tip penetrated easily. It will cut. Grizz got the boot. I thought Rick was going to get the boot. Yeah. I even started typing, Rick gets the boot. And then I had to delete it, and Grizz got the boot. And it was the tip that did him in. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, we were on the fence about that, too, I think. We thought he was probably going to go.
Because it always goes to commercial break, and so we're like, who do you think's going?
Yeah.
So Grizz got the boot, and so you know what that means. Teresa's getting points.
Oh, yeah.
But we're still in the game with our pick, so we'll see how that plays out here. So round 3, the Flamberge Rapier. Rapier?
I don't like.
Do you not know how to say it?
Rapier.
Because they made.
No, I know. Rick was saying it.
Rick
all
was
sorts
saying
of
it all
different
sorts of
ways.
screwed up ways.
I believe Will was calling it the rapier, but I've heard it called the rapier before, and rapier definitely doesn't sound right. But anyway, so this was a popular weapon in Europe from the mid-17th century through the early 18th century, and it was an ornate, stylized gentleman's sword. It had light, agile weapons that could be wielded single-handed to make pinpoint stabs and cuts, and can be seen in the hit mobile strategy game Domination.
Oh, yeah. It's in the notes.
You playing Dominations yet, honey?
No.
Okay.
Oh.
That's too bad.
Get rid of Farmville.
I like my Farmville.
You can
Maybe
put farms in Dominations, I think.
But I've established my farm.
But you get to stab people.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's not her
That's not
thing.
an appealing thing.
So,
I'm sorry.
You must have flamboyant, aka wavy, double-edged blade, and handle must include 2 side rings, a rear guard, an upward swept rear quillion, and a downward swept front quillion, 2 arms, a knuckle bow, and a pommel. And Jesus must also bless the weapon.
You like that? Guess who took these notes? Yeah. This guy.
Wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, I mean, look at all that crap you had to do just for the guard.
Yeah,
but they're metal worker. Like that's what they do. Is fancy
Nobody
stuff like
does
that.
all that. Nobody's ever had to do all that.
That was easily the most intense, complicated guard that they've had to do before. There've been some other ones, but that one is pretty crazy. The handle stuff there. So we move on to our contestants in their home forges, and wouldn't you know it, Rick and Dave are both in Connecticut. Rick is in Bethel, Connecticut, and Dave is maybe about 15-minute drive away in Sherman, Connecticut.
Crazy.
Do you think they might have known each other? I mean, it seems they're so close together, and they're both doing bladesmithing. You would think they might have some awareness of who the other guy is.
Possibly.
Anyway, Rick, on day 1, he used his 5160 spring steel, and he hoped to have his blade shaped by the end of the day. On day 2, he did his heat treating. He built a large 4-foot quench tanker, about 4 feet, welded the bottom, couldn't get it to not leak. He was pouring the vegetable oil in there, and it was still leaking out the bottom. So he settled on putting a little bit of black duct tape around that weld to help keep all that oil in. And then on day 4, he spent the day grinding and getting his stuff weight kind of down as much as possible, and he got it to about 3.5 pounds, and from there finished off his handle.
They really didn't show much going on with these guys at their shops.
Yeah, I kind of blew through it. So, picking up with Dave, he used a fly press to shape his metal, and Sean noted here that it was painful to watch.
Did you see that shit?
Okay,
oh my god!
It's a flywheel. So you grab this thing and you pull it this way, and it kind of goes, and then you just watch the press come down slowly, matching the amount that you're pulling in one direction. So it's gearing it so it's providing a more force in a downward motion. But yeah, man,
dude, I mean
still quite a bit of effort
on
the part of the operator.
Time, like, dude, he's got this long piece of metal he's got to get through. I was like, dude,
I guess if you think about it, compared to having to hammer it and stretch it out, I feel like you're doing less overall, not damage, but it's less strength intensive or less endurance intensive to be able to just pull that thing, then slam it down.
I
with a hammer and
suppose
stretch it out.
it would seem awkward. Like it just seemed like a really awkward motion, you know, and you're holding it and doing all that. Hats off to him, man.
Yeah. For day 2, it was interesting that they said this because they said the same thing in the last episode. One of the guys competing is like, well, when you're blacksmith, you make the tools you need to get the job done. And he said it almost the exact same way as Derek did in the previous episode. So he made a jig using some threaded nipples, threaded conduit nipples. Ooh. And he welded those to a table. And then basically he would heat up his sword, put it in between 2 of the nipples, and then bend it to give it its waviness. And then he just kept going down the blade, heat treating, slowly warming it up, getting it, bending it, and it actually worked really well.
It looked pretty awesome.
It looked awesome. It came out great.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
And then on day 5, he did a flame bluing of the basket and added an additional chunk to the back for his pommel to make the blade more balanced. He did break the tap in the pommel and cut off a chunk of a mild steel bar, which would be easier to work with, but it was also larger, so it added some extra weight. But it was okay because he was trying to balance that thing out anyway, and a little bit extra weight on that handle wasn't going to mess up the fact that he had a pretty long and heavy blade already, so you want some extra weight there to help counterbalance it. So we move back to the forge for testing, and it was a pig slash and stab kill test. Rick's had lots of forward balance, but it was not normal of a rapier. It was a little difficult to wield, but it will kill. Dave's had very good balance. It was very easy to thrust. The slashes, holy cow. Like, Rick did, you know, when Rick cut, you're like, okay, well, I guess that's the type of weapon. Maybe it just doesn't have that type of cutting power. But then Dave gets in there and they slice through, and it just goes halfway through the pig each time.
Those are beautiful cuts.
Cutting through the spine. It will kill. And then the strength test. I did not care for this one. The steel buckler attack.
This one was so anticlimactic.
It was so boring, and it was just like, really, that's how you're going to test it? So it's just a steel buckler shield sort of thing, and Dave Baker takes it and goes dink, dink,
dink,
dink, dink, stab,
point,
stab,
poke, poke,
push, and then just watch the blade bend. Like, why not just do a bend test?
I don't know.
Right? That was kind of what the end goal was.
That was the point, was to see it flex and then go back to true.
I would rather see that more nerve-wracking bend test where they have to bend it to a certain angle than the poking and watching it bend. I don't know. Whatever. Rick had a strong blade, took a little bit of minor chipping, and David Baker commented that it had too much forward balance. Dave did not have any noticeable damage, but he complained that the guard could be 20% smaller. He said everything was way bigger than it needed to be. But you know what? Who cares? It's not going to make a difference.
Something to say.
Yeah. And then we go to our sharpness test, which was a giant sandbag / thrust and cut. Rick was sharp enough to lacerate, but some of those swipes didn't cut. But in general, it will cut. Dave, on the other hand, easily thrusted through, slashed, and cut nice long slashes into really there. Clean. And it was pretty clear that Dave had won that based off of that, and he did. He won, which means here. Dave is here, man. And we all got a point. And actually, we didn't look up the points, but there's a boop, boop, boop. Those are the points. And we all got a point for that episode.
Cool.
So that was cool. And I'm going to note one other thing I saw today on Facebook. Somebody was commenting. They had posted to the Forge and Fire discussion group. It was just, you know how Facebook allows you to put text in like a box now and then give it like a color behind it and stuff? Someone had just put, yeah, man, in there in reference to Rick saying that every time that they said, are you ready to go? Yeah, man. And somebody commented on it.
I noticed it once.
Yeah, we noticed it once.
Yeah, we noticed it as well. So somebody commented saying, well, that's kind of rude. That's really disrespectful. And I was like, what? And the guy was like, well, down in the South, we find that disrespectful. You're better off saying yes, sir, or just yes. And then the guy also said, maybe it's a Connecticut thing. And I commented, I go, it is definitely not a Connecticut thing. Maybe he was imitating Jason Knight.
Who's from the South. And all the time was saying, yeah, man, on when he was on that show. Yeah. Like, anytime they would ask him if they were done judging, yeah, man. And then it kicked off a huge just thread of people talking about this. I had to turn off the post notifications because I was like, I don't need to know every time somebody comments and says that it's rude that he said, yeah, man. Rick, you can say yeah, man. We're all for the yeah, man.
By the way, it's clearly evident that Jesus blessed Dave's blade. Because he won.
Okay. Well, I guess that...
Well, hey, I said it was a requirement, right?
So, yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that was the episode. Season 5, Episode 33, Invitational Tournament, Round 4, Metal Workers. The next Forge and Fire episode will be the Invitational Tournament finale. The $50,000 prize will be awarded. And, man, it looks like it's going to be good. Based on the guys that have won so far, that is going to be a good episode. And I've already seen a description of what it's supposed to be. If I understand correctly, I don't remember exactly what it is, but they basically tell you that I think they have to make a wakizashi, which is like the samurai short sword, and then I believe the final is you have to make another samurai sword after that. From what if I remember correctly, I might be wrong. Anyway, that was the episode. Remember to subscribe and like and follow on the YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and all that good stuff. Thanks again for watching our videos. And that's the last one for this
That's
week. So have a good weekend, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Dave's not here. Dave's not here, man. Dave's not here, man.
Dave's not here, man.
No, man, I'm Dave, man. Who?